forgetty, because it doesn't... Oh.
Never forgetty, because we're back, Ewan! We're back! Never forgetting what we just saw. Welcome to our second game here at the High School League of Legends Queensland edition. We're getting ready for another good match. SPCC, no longer the colors, now a new lineup, taking on the likes of St. Paul's. And this is going to be an exciting game. If our first game was anything to go off of, I feel like it can only get better from there, I suppose. I don't know. Can you even top that? Is it at all possible to top what we just saw?
Oh, absolutely. Expeke, or just like a backdoor of any kind.
All right, challenge.
Challenge has been set. Let's go. Let's see what you can do.
Let's see what they can do. Of course, we can see our two lineups up on the screen right now. SPCC will be in blue. They're, of course, consisting of UnusedMove in the top lane, SmileyNerm in the jungle, Stacked 5 in mid, Örvendeck in bot lane, and ozquikmick getting the best name award, by the way. He's going to be playing support.
Yeah, but facing up against them is going to be their opponents of St. Paul. And we want to see how these two teams can face it. We have Mitten9 up in the top lane there. Admiral KIM is going to be in command of the jungle. HuntingU in the middle lane is indeed what he's going to be doing there. RealML is down in the AD carry position and will be backed up by Rubik 1908. From the side of St. Paul. And I'm very interested to see how these two teams battle heads. Because, again, game number one was phenomenal. And I'm basically going to use that as the assessor for the future teams. Because, you know, that's how it happens, right? You're the first person to perform in a group, first group to perform in an assignment, then you set the baseline. And that was a phenomenal baseline to work with.
I mean, it definitely was an exciting one. I will give it that. From an entertainment standpoint, it was hard to beat. But moving forward from there, though, there still is some things that I feel is to be desired a little bit in terms of gameplay-wise. We did see great team fighting in that first game. We saw, you know, good moments to invade, good collapses, good proactive gameplay as well. But we haven't really seen the strong macro play, I feel like, to carry through an entire game. There are still unforced errors here and there. So there's still opportunities, I feel like, for teams to sort of establish themselves as that premier team. And that's something that we could be looking for in this one, because SPCC colors in the past have always been one of the top tier teams. Like, they've always been sort of a benchmark team. Like, if you can compete or be better than these guys, that's because you are playing in the game at a higher level. And although this is a new lineup, they are no longer colors, I'm still going to be holding St. Paul's and SPCC to that same standard. I am going to be expecting a slightly elevated gameplay in that regard. So we're going to be tightening the magnifying glass a little bit more in this one. I am going to be expecting to see a lot more clean gameplay moving into this.
Yeah, and once again, I feel like a lot of this clean gameplay comes from the start of a jungler. Even, again, we haven't seen the draft. Obviously, the draft will be hopefully kicking off shortly. But a lot of the times, especially right now in Season 11, the jungler is king. Even with the jungle experience nerfs that kicked through recently, junglers still have that ridiculous game impact, and they can set up their team. Hell, we saw that last game. Multiple visits top lane, and Spoil them out got, well, far ahead for the beginning start of it there. So I'm very interested to see the way that these teams approach pick and ban, because obviously you need to squeeze away not only, you know, the strong picks, like we saw the Darius in Queensland. He pretty much rules Queensland with like an iron fist.
Queensland is Noxus, okay? That's just how we are up here. We are Noxus. I suppose by that regards, you know, New South Wales is Demacia, and that's how come State of Origin's a really big thing. And then, I don't know, you down in Victoria, you can be Bandle City or something.
I was going to say, we're going to be Piltover down here, because all the flashy stuff gets to happen down in Victoria.
Does that make like Zon Tasmania because it's kind of tucked in underneath? Okay, yeah, basically. That makes sense to me. That makes sense. Oh, yeah, and then I guess Ionia would be Western Australia because it's off in the middle of nowhere. Either way, though, SPCC taking on St. Paul's right now. We're still kind of waiting to get into our picks and bans. Look, I've always been on Team Noxus over Demacia. I'm not ashamed of it. I think Noxus, they've got the better threads. You know, they got the style going for them.
True. I mean, have you seen like Swain's clothes? Like, damn, that man knows how to put on a show. And talk about a show, we will have SPCC going up against St. Paul's. We are now into Champions Select, and the first round of bans coming through again. I'm hoping to see the Darius either picked or banned. I'll take either at this point.
Impure.
We also seem to have like a couple name changes actually coming on the St. Paul's side. MESSI and Snow in the top lane, and RealML in the bot lane. A little bit surprised right there. Subs can be used, though, in this league, so not too surprised. Our first bans, though, going to be a Vayne and a Hecarim, then the Graves. I'm liking to seeing the priority actually on these jungle bans right now. We did mention the importance of them, and we saw the effect of them in that game 1. Getting rid of these faster clear junglers tells me that both of these teams are maybe a little bit in tune to the meta right now, and they're target banning, and they're focusing out some of those best jungle picks.
Yeah, and specifically that Hecarim is such a safe, blind, pickable jungler right now. So get that off the table. If you want to continue to squeeze the jungle pool, there are quite a few AP champions like Leah. I know she's not as popular, but she's pretty up there when it comes to the ability to skirmish. But she also can be quite difficult to play in a coordinated setting because latest games you just become a really weird form of engage. So might not see that one then. The final ban coming through from SPCC should be a bit of a teller of what they want to try to grab early. They're removing actually the Echo, so maybe want a bit more of a passive mid lane by removing the Child of Zorn.
Yeah, and Pantheon will be our last ban as well. So each team kind of a little bit fearful of some of these more aggressive either jungle or mid laners right now with some of those picks. We could be seeing that passive mid lane. I'm expecting to see things like that Orianna, possibly a Syndra get locked in at some stage. But our first pick is actually going to be the Shen. That is a very safe top pick if going into it blind. Strong utility across the map, a true team player, and with a deceptive amount of early game damage. I really like this pick.
Yeah, and it looks like it is going to be a passive top lane. In realities here, yes, Shen does have the overall kill threat onto Malphite because the percentage health damage of his blade when he does use his Twilight is nice, but realistically, maybe there'll be one, maybe two cheesy first 2 kills, but that should be realistically be it. Malphite, as we all know, is a rock, very hard to take down, and okay, we're talking about aggressive junglers, formal. I feel like Kha'Zix owns, oh my god, please. Please. I mean, this would, in a second. Shaco, please, come on, do it.
This would lead to a very interesting jungle if we see that Shaco locked in. We talked before about how, the jungle can be a chess game. With the Shaco, it would have been a 3D chess game. Instead, we see the more conventional Volibear. Sorry to disappoint you in that regards. However, yeah, we're talking about aggressive junglers. I do like this Kha'Zix pick. I think this is St. Paul saying, yeah, we're going to establish that tempo. One issue, though, with Kha'Zix is it can be very feast or famine, and you need to have those right targets in order to focus. A tanky pick like the Volibear up against a Kha'Zix is typically a smart choice. In a perfect world, if we do see Admiral KIM go for some of these earlier invades, you would expect that Volibear can stay alive long enough for teams to come and back him up, especially when you have the likes of the Shen. Now, I was expecting this with the Malphite pick. I didn't want to say it and jinx it, but it looks like we're getting a Yasuo comp. No! Nope, I did jinx it! I jinxed it!
Oh. But the Syndra is a really solid mid lane pick here. I mean, she does well into most matchups. She can either nullify the lane or she can make kill pressures in the lane here. So I'd love to see that champion. And it works well if you're going to try to do a bit of a cheeky, like, 2-man roaming squad with a Syndra as well as the Kha'Zix. You set them up with a stun, then Kha'Zix jumps in, starts pouncing on them, starts chewing them. It's a good move for polls if they look for the mid game there. And it does put Stacked in a bit of an awkward situation here because there are the nullifiable lanes with a Syndra. Like, you can be like, okay, I'll go against Syndra and I can sort of reduce her impact on me. There aren't a ton of them. You can go for this. I know some people still like set mid, but it is a very, very niche matchup, and which most mid laners don't play set anymore. So I'm very interested to see where Stacked goes with that. And of course, the bot lanes, Kai'Sa is a super priority pick. We've talked about it time and time again. And yeah, they saw the last game, like, okay, Kai'Sa struggles into Trista early. Let's just get that off the table as quickly as we can.
I think there's a couple reasons as well for the Caitlyn and the Trist ban. They are respecting St. Paul's desire to go for a front-to-back team composition right now. Unfortunately, that left the Jinx up, who I feel like is probably stronger than both of those with what St. Paul is trying to put together. The reason why I think SPCC is sort of expecting that actually came from that Leona ban. And that kind of caught me off guard. Leona's not really a typically seen ban because there aren't many Leonas these days. What Leona is great at, though, is locking down back lines. You know what Zed's really good at? Assassinating back lines. So St. Paul's were kind of like showing, hey, we want a big backline AD carry. And the response, banned the Triss, banned the Caitlyn, 2 strong backline ADCs. They left the Jinx up. Not a surprise St. Paul's goes there. We saw the Orianna hover before, so SPCC will take that one. I want to see some engage come from SPCC. We see the Rell. That will do. That's a nice ball delivery system between that and the Shen. And now St. Paul's, it all comes down to them. Where do they lean for their support?
I feel like they go for an enchanter here. A Lulu, a Morgana, a Janna, something to enable the Jinx to be looked after. The Morgana works brilliantly here because you've got Syndra as a damage threat, you've got Kha'Zix as an assassination potential, and Malphite to start the fight. All you need now is something to keep your backline threats alive, and Morgana does that in spades. Because now, when you start the fight with your Volibear or your Rell, one of your carries will be safe, courtesy of the Black Shield. So I love that pickup there by St. Paul's.
It's just an interesting one for St. Paul, though, because it doesn't look like it when you initially look at this team comp, because you're thinking, well, where are the tanks? Like, yeah, you have a Malphite, that's something, but believe it or not, this still is a front-to-back team comp with the key word and the reason why is spacing. Instead of having a front line built up of bodies, it's a front line built up of threats. If you want to jump into this team comp, you're jumping into isolation damage coming from a Kha'Zix. You're jumping into a Scatter the Weak coming out of HuntingU. You're jumping into that unstoppable force from one Malphite right there. And they're going to have to play around that spacing and almost dare SPCC to come to them and be caught out in the invisible front line. That's when RealML will start to do that damage. And that's why the Morgana pick is so good, because with that Black Shield, even if they get to the Jinx, leaving themselves exposed in the process, they're not going to be able to lock her down because she'll be protected. This is such a deceptive and such a tricky team comp from St. Paul's. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, but the one worry you would have in this composition from St. Paul's is the execution. These, I like to call them zone control teamfight compositions. Because as you said, it's not, you don't have bodies fronting it, but you've got hey, if you're going to walk into us like this, we have the damage sources, we have the abilities to lock you down and take you down. Their margin for execution can be minute. I'm talking if the Scatter the Weak from the Syndra doesn't stun. I'm talking if the Flame Chompers aren't thrown down at the right time, or if the Dark Binding doesn't connect, then St. Paul's are in a lot of trouble, because the Malphite's good, but the Malphite needs to be the engage. He can't afford to risk being a counter engage. The Kha'Zix has to be setting up on a flank. You do not want the Kha'Zix frontlining unless he's like 17-2, because he snowballed very, very quickly. So the margin for execution is high, but St. Paul's feeling confident, and if they can pull it off, it is phenomenal. Of a team fight execution. Well, on the other side for SPCC, they're still getting team fight composition. They've got great ball delivery systems. The margin of error, they've got a bit more wiggle room though, because they've got 3 bodies for the front line of their composition. So the question for St. Paul's is, yes, you can CC at least one of them, but can you CC all of them?
And all of them while protecting your main source of damage, that being Örvendeck on this Kai'Sa. And this kind of goes back to more brilliancy for the St. Paul's draft. Kai'Sa is a champion that also wants to jump in to where that spacing control is going to be. And this could make things a little bit easier for St. Paul's, because yes, they need to execute correctly. They need to be proper. They need to make sure that they, hit their correct targets. And in this situation, there's only really one target they need to be watching out for, and that is going to be the Kai'Sa. Now, just because there's only one target doesn't necessarily mean they're going to execute on it. As we saw in that last game, Tristana was the one target and was really hard to lock down. But Tristana, multiple rocket jumps. Örvendeck, Kai'Sa, only one killer instinct. And if it is not used at that correct moment, it could spell disaster for SPCC. Fighting front to back, it's going to feel a little bit clunky for them. They're going to want to engage. They're going to want to pull that trigger. If SPCC can play this game patiently, I think it will pay them dividends. Is this going to be, in theory, this should be like one of the greatest games of cat and mouse we have seen in a good long while.
In theory form. And I think that theory lives or dies in our early game. And I think a lot of it is going to be on Admiral KIM on this Kha'Zix. We know Kha'Zix loves to snowball. We know Kha'Zix I personally think he needs to snowball to stay relevant. If you've gone 15 minutes and your Kha'Zix has maybe 1 kill, it isn't as impactful as maybe the Volibear will be, even if the 1 kill is against the Volibear. So I really want to see like aggressive jungle pathing from Admiral KIM. I'm talking ganking pre-Scuttle Crab. I'm talking double Scuttle Crabs. I'm talking early Dragon Forces out of St. Paul's here. That's what I want to see out of this Kha'Zix. Really utilize the fact that he is a damage threat early. And if you're in the right position, maybe look for an invade there. Because while SmileyNerm on the Volibear is hard to kill, if he's on his own, Kha'Zix, well, we all know that he specializes in hunting someone down when they're by themselves. He's the horror movie villain, is what he is. You split from the pack, he's coming for you.
For that to happen, though, and this is why it's going to be so important for not just Kha'Zix, but everyone on the team to step up, you're going to need that lane priority. And otherwise, you can't really get away with invades. As we saw in our last game as well, invades would happen, and the lane priority wasn't there, and junglers would get collapsed upon. Admiral KIM, yes, he should be looking to invade, and you know he's going to want to, but because that Volibear can be so naturally tanky, if he's unable to execute the Volibear, and if UnusedMove is able to get there, or if we see ozquikmick or even Stacked arrive to provide backup, well, that extra bit of shielding, that extra bit of crowd control is going to be more than enough to sort of turn things back around. So the lane priority has to be a focus as well from St. Paul's, and they might have to do that without the help of Admiral KIM, who is instead, looking to either power farm or jump into that jungle themselves. Another big thing to look out for, again, I sort of mentioned it last time, is obviously going to be that roam. I do like it when supports are able to sort of break free and get out. And as scary as a Kha'Zix is hunting on its own, just imagine a black shield Kha'Zix as you're caught in a dark binding. Like that, you're done. And that is why, again, if St. Paul can get that lane priority, if they can get Rubik out of lane and helping Admiral KIM try to find that snowball, it could be great times for this red side.
I agree, but there's one very little problem with that formal, which is I think the Rubric and Admiral together would be a nightmare combo, but can you afford to leave little old Jinx, who has no mobility, who has very little ability to actually take care of herself, against a Rell, who we know can engage, and a Kai'Sa, who we know can follow up? Like, I worry, once again, if Rell is out of position when Rubik goes to the roam, that's going to be a dead Jinx.
Ewan, please explain to everyone what Jinx's passive is.
It's when I kill you, I get to run. I basically become Sonic when I kill you.
Easy. Just get a kill. Problem solved. Get out. I don't see what's so difficult about that. Like, come on. You're an AD carry. It's what you're supposed to do. It's definitely always going to be a threat. Lane priority is so important. And SPCC, you would actually think, should have the advantage with the lane priorities in this one. And 100% correct, because I know you're just looking at, ozquik and Örvendeck jumping on a poor Jinx left on their own. I mean, that's not even including the Shen as well, who can show up at any given moment as long as a teammate is there. There could be a lot of bot pressure coming from SPCC. I think they're designed to sort of contest these dragons. They're going to want to fight it. Expect to see, those ultimates used for that control over the neutral objectives. And with those neutral objectives, actually, SPCC would be quite happy. I think they really, really, really want that Mountain Drake that we saw last game as well. Yeah. I think they would be so happy with that, because if they can prevent a lot of the bursts from St. Paul's, I mean, they'll be laughing.
Yeah, they'll be great. But my worry for SPCC on looking at these dragons is I don't feel like they're going to be able to actually get good priority around doing them early. Yes, Volibear, if he gets the backup, can. But the bot lane, while SPCC should have a bit of an advantage in the bot lane because they can play proactively with the Rell and the trading potential of the Kai'Sa, the middle lane is a little bit of a different situation. The Syndra should be able to be pressuring Stacked at all times. And there is a nifty little trick where I believe you could basically... I forget the specifics of it. Basically, at level 3, you can hard shove Syndra, hard shove the Orianna in as Syndra, recall, get a second Doran's ring, get back into lane, and lose no CS, no experience, and basically continue the momentum that a Syndra needs. Again, Syndra should be coming out of this lane with a kill or two because she can pressure the Orianna more than the Orianna can fight back. So I kind of want to see HuntingU and Admiral work together.
I don't want to see...
Smiley, careful.
Smiley. I was about to say, I don't want to see Smiley walk into an awkward situation, as we do have ourselves, hey, you know what? Opening day pause. That tends to happen. Hopefully it's not going to be too long of one right now. I do believe that is Stacked, who may have been unable to connect right there. My detective work, just kind of seeing a Orianna with no items and Actually, not even a warding trinket. Also, the chat that came through saying, hey, our mid laner disconnected. Probably a little bit of a telling sign as well. Should be a quick one, though. Stacked will hopefully be getting back on that rift soon. I mean, Smiley was really flirting with death right there. It felt like.
What he's trying to do is set up a standard line of scrimmage, which is you have one man of your team covering each entrance, so 2 on the top half, 2 on the bottom half. But the way he's positioning in line of scrimmage is a little bit unorthodox. Typically, you want to be in the bush so you can't be seen, or further back near the raptor pit so you can see them, rocking into the actual pit itself. But there is a little bit risky because Rubik, all he needs to do is fire off an early Dark Binding.
Mm-hmm.
And if that catches the Volibear, we know that there is follow-up. We know that there is more than likely enough follow-up to get a kill. So hopefully Smiley does back up a little bit while he waits for Stack to get back into it.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, whenever you're up against a team with Morgana, you have to be a bit aware of that invade potential. Nautilus, another key one, but these heavy crowd control supports, teams like to play around them in the early game. They like to go for these level ones because why not? You'll have that advantage in these situations. And Smiley did do the smart thing at the tail end, did back away when it looked like things were starting to sort of almost flirt with danger. I mean, Smiley didn't know how close they were to danger, but now they are going to be aware, perhaps, or well, I'm not sure they would still be aware, but they got lucky. I don't know what to say. Something told Smiley, don't go. Pulled out, and now we're sitting in a good position if you're SPCC. St. Paul's, however, though, I do like how they're thinking ahead. They are planning for some of these unique plays. It tells me that, at this team, they're here to have a bit of fun, but there also could be dangerous at any given moment. Yeah,
I think the St. Paul stack is more of actually a defensive technique. And it's a bit, and the reason I say it is, yes, you've got the Morgana, and typically teams of like Morganas, and I think the one really popular is Blitzcrank. They love to invade. They love to try and get these early pickoffs. But on the other side, you've got Rell and you've got the Shen. If SPCC wanted to do an early invade to try and catch Admiral early to stop what we want, which was an aggressive style of jungling from him, then you bring it to the bottom lane because your single target CC, forget that Shen's taunt isn't, a single line AoE effectively. If you can stack up the Shen taunt as well as the Rell dismount, you can actually see someone for a decent amount of time, long enough for Kha'Zix to get up in personal, long enough for Orianna to get a few free whacks in there too. So you could, in theory, catch someone from St. Paul's through an early invade and nuke their health bars. So St. Paul's is basically saying, hey, if you invade us, which you'll invade bottom half because that's just standard now, we're ready for you and we're ready to turn it around. Because if you walk into the St. Paul's comp as SPCC, that's a disaster because it's Morgana binding. Then it's a Malphite slam. And then Kha'Zix decides, there's someone nom. And it's a bit painful.
I'm also wondering if we wouldn't have even seen a Scatter of the Week put in use as well, but I'm pretty sure not quite because you need to be level 2 for that. But it would have been nice. It would have been nice. It would have been nice to just be able to really I suppose Chompers also can be a first take for Jinx at times if you are going for invades like this. Just that layer of level 1 CC, it's not nice. It's not fair. It's not fun. And neither is waiting for this pause. Do apologize. We will be getting into the game very, very shortly as well. I'm impressed with both these team comps, though. This is actually like 2 very, very high level comps, I feel like, that we're seeing right now. The only kind of unconventional pick, I would argue, might be the Kha'Zix, just because of how feast or famine the nature of this champion is. However, it's the mid lane in particular. Orianna versus Syndra, I feel like is a matchup that we could be seeing a lot of in this year moving forwards.
I think we should. I've been saying for years, and I'm sure you've probably heard me prattle on about it, Max, is I believe firmly that every strong mid laner should have Orianna and Syndra in their wheelhouse. The fact that they both provide so much for any team composition is ridiculous. Syndra, if you pick the Syndra, you're going for lane pressure, which means you have a dominant lane in most matchups. So then you can do, a jungle mid combo. You can always threaten to, press the R button and nuke someone's health bar, the outplay button, if you will. It's a lot of pressure. And then from the Orianna side, yes, you neutralize the lane as the Orianna. You're not going to win 9 times out of 10. But you can nullify the lane pressure, you can clear the wave, and then get to team fights. I don't think I have to state how good Orianna is when it comes to team fights. Like, that's been her staple since season 3, 7, 8 years old. I don't do maths on stream very well.
That's fine. But all I'm going to say is, so remember this. Next time you're playing your solo queue game and you're thinking, you know what? I want to play Yasuo, even though my team has no knockups and everyone else is already attack damage. Stop and think, no, what does the team need? And then you play Syndra. Because guess what? You'll probably still do more damage on the Syndra than you will on the Yasuo. I still remember a time and place when you could also say Lissandra was part of like the big three of like sort of the control mages. I miss Lissandra. That was the one I decided to focus on. That was, I put all my stocks in Lissandra thinking, you know what? We're going to pay out big. Good times in the future. Well, sadly, that didn't quite pay out. And so going from that, though, I'm just going to ask a Twitch chat a question. Going to throw it out there. Which champion did you put time and effort into learning that turned out to no longer be viable for you? I'm super curious, and I kind of want to hear what you have to say. Ewan, what's your sort of take on this one?
I don't know. I'm trying to think, because I've been playing this game for too many years for me. I think I remember the champion that I put all my chips into back in the day was old Nidalee. When Nidalee was a mid laner, before her rework where she was a jungler, where you would just hit someone with a Q and their health bar would just drop. Like, those are the old days, you know, Gragas, Orianna, and Nidalee.
That's when you would see the spear compilations on YouTube. Yeah. They were so satisfying. Hotshot GG, truly an inspiration of the game of League of Legends. Well, the invade did continue, but it didn't look like it's going to pay out this time around. A very risky recall from MESSI and Snow, but won't be found because, well, all the wards, they were sort of placed. They were placed out there, and SPCC knew actually that MESSI and Snow was sticking around just because they didn't see him run away, but fortunately for the Malphite, able to escape.
Yeah, and what I find a little bit odd in what we just witnessed here is the lack of knowledge. Now, I don't mean knowledge in terms of ability, I mean knowledge in terms of St. Paul's cannot say for certain where the enemy jungler is starting. Now, you can work it out quite quickly because you see Unused walk straight in the lane, didn't do a fake leash. So you know for a fact that it is a bottom side start that they reclaimed it, but not dropping wards is a little bit odd. It can work, and again, it hasn't hurt them today, but I feel like for future these teams can maybe look to making sure they are dropping wards into the enemy jungle when you go for those kind of invades.
Correct me if I'm not mistaken too, but didn't Admiral Kim start with the ward, go back and switch to the sweeper?
Yes, he put it in the bush on top of the...
okay.
Wait, where did he put it? Actually,
no, I don't think he did. I think he didn't place a ward and just came back with the sweeper, didn't wind up using it. Early teleport being used by Stacked as well to get back into lane, and this is going to be a little bit concerning right now. That's going to be more emphasis, I feel like, for St. Paul's to put pressure in this mid lane, because if they get a favorable trade right there, that's going to put this Orianna so far back. So if Admiral Kim is going to make that early move like we were talking about before, I'm expecting it to happen more in this mid lane.
It would have to happen in this mid lane. You've already got a favorable matchup for the Syndra. Now Syndra has been gifted a level lead, and against an Orianna, this is a phenomenal position for HuntingU to be in, and it's going to put Stacked in a really awkward situation where he's going to lose every trade he takes for at least the next 5 to 10 minutes, and unless Smiley on the Volibear comes to visit, there's not a lot that Stacked can actually do to reduce the bleeding. He's just going to have to suffer for the next couple of minutes. That's unfortunately the way that it's going to have to go.
Speaking of ways how things are going, take a look at what's happening in top lane right now. Very low health bars, and that's almost going to be more tempting, I feel like, for Admiral Kim, who currently does have the pace over SmileyNerm when it comes to going through this juggle. And you can see right there, going to cut off that last camp and possibly looking for that first gank. I can hear the Jaws music being played down below as well. That's a nice dark binding.
CC combo. Oz should be able to get out. One more hit will do it, but you cannot take that flash from Real. Because, actually, no, you could have. There's no heal.
Yeah.
If you, I've just realized there's a cleanse coming in for the Kai'Sa, so didn't want to risk it, and looks like on the top half of the map, Admiral was not able to set up for his gank, and instead will be satisfied with the Scuttle Crab.
So yeah, the gank play was a little bit too risky because UnusedMove was able to actually shove that wave in instead of having it freeze right there. By the time Admiral Kim was able to get up to that top lane, the wave had already bounced. Too risky of a play. Don't throw away your tempo lead right now. Don't throw away your advantages. In fact, instead, take a look towards that mid lane and maybe be able to force something there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something akin to a dive. Now, HuntingU does not have Ignite available, so if the kill is going to happen, it has to be done, you know, in that zone. Although I'm not even sure at this stage Admiral KIM is even needed, just because of the damage being put out by HuntingU. Meanwhile, up top.
Yeah, MESSI is taking it low, but does clap back. One more auto will do it, but does not want to risk going in under the turret there. This game is balancing on the flash goes in. One more Q. The cycle is not enough for the turret. Might turn it around. Can he get the heal now? Unused. One more hit will do it, and he gets first blood.
Oh my goodness, this is why you do not dive a Shen. I mean, they are so deceptive. The ability to block the autos, the ability to find that late shield, and MESSI and Snow was doing so well in this lane, and that's going to be a major advantage going to SPCC right now, because that's, you know, a good chunk of gold play. That's going to be flash gone from the lane opponent as well. MESSI opting not to teleport back, so UnusedMove is even going to get a wave advantage as well for free. This Shen going to be quicker to level 6, going to be quicker to the punch, especially if we see some early dragon plays.
Yeah, and the lack of teleport from MESSI, I think, is necessary. Yes, he's going to fall behind in levels, but it means when there is a play around dragon, he has teleport when the Shen has the ultimate. So he will still be able to match that the global pressure coming out from his opposite number after what was an unfortunate trade there. And look around the rest of that, though. This mid lane, look at the difference in CS, and look at the itemization. HuntingU decided, I'm not going to, you know, build my items towards my lost chapter. No, I'm getting the blasting one. I'm looking for the kill threat here. And with level 6 hit,
now's the chance.
Yeah, Stack has to now live forever in fear. Any stun can mean death.
Yeah, so which means SmileyNerm, instead of being able to come up towards this top lane and play towards that top side advantage, might still be having to babysit Stacked a little bit more. Be aware that at any given moment, you know, St. Paul's might be able to pull this trigger and get a major mid lane advantage, and this is where you start to see it the most. UnusedMove trying to be that bully now at level 6, wants to be proactive, but does not have that jungle support necessarily. Eyes instead probably going to be kept more towards that mid lane. Meanwhile, for St. Paul, I want to see him be more proactive towards the bot side of the map at this stage. Top half of the map not going their way. Bot half still absolutely can, and I feel like they're on that same page because Admiral KIM is sort of scouting out some prey.
Yeah, ooh, KIM. I like the attempt here, but if Admiral KIM is going to successfully gank this bot lane, it has to be after Rubik and Rell have dropped the combo, which is Dark Binding into Flame Chompers. As HuntingU, I like that he's putting on pressure, but he is a bit starved of mana. The build that he's gone for requires him to get the kill, or requires him to basically shove Stacked under turret. He can't go for these, you know, half-baked trades because you're just not going to have the mana to keep it going. So yeah, blue buff here is mandatory for Hunting.
It absolutely is, but fortunately for Hunting, will be able to take it. It does come at the cost of a lot of health out of Admiral KIM. However, that is perfectly fine. Admiral KIM actually still yet to reset since the start of this game, and I almost worry if Admiral KIM actually has kind of stuck around in the jungle a little bit too long at this stage of the game, because he is going to be items down against SmileyNerm. Up top, MESSI will be fine, don't worry about it. It's a Malphite. They can take a couple whacks from a sword and still be standing. That said, maybe not in mid lane.
Hunting, you have no mana, but oh my god, he does get it around. But the shockwave pulled him in, but he does get out in one piece.
Barely able to survive that one. That was so risky from Hunting. Action down below.
Yeah, Rell needs to stay safe here. Smiley was not able to get any CC down. That should dissolve in nothing. But now Admiral comes in for the pounds. Who does force a flash out of Smiley. Duff Binding.
Teleport.
Admiral, though, is hungry for more. Gets CC'd up. Can they look there? Smiley.
Unstoppable force. Nah.
Yeah, TP for the Malphite. But suppose they don't want to commit to this. They're going to rotate up for Dragon instead. TP, if that TP had come in and MESSI had decided, yes, I'm committing, that could have been beautiful.
I still feel like they almost would have been able to try and pick something off on the tail end of it all. I don't like how MESSI is running all the way back. They had dragon control. They forced SPCC back, yet they don't commit for the dragon. Instead, they decide to play it safe, pull back. They didn't even clear out the ward or check in the dragon pit. St. Paul's, I think their heart was set on the gank down bot, and they just decide to let it go, and that's going to be a missed opportunity, unfortunately, for the squad. They had a chance to get an early Infernal Drake, a chance to really start to drag themselves, I feel like, a bit more back into this game, but instead they let it slip.
Yeah, it is a little unfortunate that they don't decide to commit to the objective. That could have started with the Dragon game, but instead they chose to let it go. And Well, Stacked, this is about what we expect here. Hunting's looking for the kill pressure because he does have ult coming up shortly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And yeah, he's setting up, he's basically saying, Stack, if you want to stay in this lane, all it takes is now one stun. And this is what we expected. Stack being late to lane hurts him in a matchup where he can't fall behind.
Eat them biscuits, Ori. Eat them biscuits. Stacked is kind of stacking those cookies and desperately trying to swallow them down right now. But with that kill threshold, it means there's options, although pushing R is an option as well.
Yeah, well, there is again, we've talked about it before, the Syndra into Orianna matchup. Syndra pressures the Orianna in, needs to get a couple kills, and the fact that Stacked was late to lane hurt him so badly. He was always going to be a level down as a minimum, and when you're the defensive party in this matchup here, you just can't afford to be the level down, and down in gold, down in levels, and he can't even do what I know a lot of people love in this matchup, which is you grab the cheeky, I believe it's called the Verdant, the AP equivalent of the arm guard, and that kind of nullifies lane. But the issue is, Stack just doesn't have the spare money to afford it right now.
No, he does not at all. And that has been because of that lane pressure, that zoning potential that we see from a Syndra, as well as just not being able to sort of stay safe in lane, has sort of forced Stacked in a quite terrible position. And when you're put in spots like this as an Orianna, as it was supposed to be a bit more of a control mage, you really have to play the game. I can only take what is given to me right now, and Hunting is doing their best to give nothing. That super mega death rocket almost finds unused move. Admiral KIM is there as well. Flash follow up, and KIM gets the kill. Also, Ewan, I don't know if you noticed, but we've kind of swapped back to roles, and I think we should stick with it.
Yeah, I noticed that one. But that was a phenomenal setup by Rell there. The super mega death rocket from the other side of the map. They must have seen it coming. Like, SPCC saw it coming because it nearly hit Stacked in the mid lane.
Oh, Dragon, though.
Now, set up in Dragon.
Oh, that's a good use of the choppers, though. You can't escape the pit. Shockwave, though, is going to try to disrupt the St. Paul's backline, but not enough to turn the fight around. SmileyNerm really wanted that Dragon. RealML really wants that double kill instead. Dragon eventually falls. It goes in St. Paul's favor, and the red side way out in front.
Yeah, that SPCC... They lost control of the top half of the map because they saw KIM up there, and they're like, okay, we do Dragon. Now, most worlds, that is an acceptable thought process. As, well, this is a problem.
Yeah. Push R, get kill.
Yeah, push R, get kill. But back to the macro. St. Paul's... Sorry, what else is there to say? He's 2 levels down.
No, there isn't. It's push R, get kill. Like, that's I know we've had this debate in the past, though. Is Syndra an assassin? I still stand by no, but, I mean, there's your argument. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts the argument.
So, SPCC's logic, going back to the Dragon, was, okay, we know Admiral just showed topside, we can afford to pressure it. The problem is that in order to successfully pressure the objective of Dragon, you must have a winning setup and at least one of your lanes on the bottom half of the map. So either mid or bot lane. Now, we've talked at length about why the mid lane matchup is not going well for SPCC. So you have to have threat in your bottom lane. And unfortunately, it's not that the Kai'Sa and the Rell are weak, but that their strength is not enough to match the pressure of Syndra as well as their lane opponents. So you can't actually rotate to the Dragon when you do not have strong enough lanes to take the fight, regardless of the fact that you did see Kha'Zix on the top half of the map. So next time Dragon's up, we'll have to keep our track of where Admiral is positioned, and SPCC maybe need to acknowledge that, hey, they're not really strong right now, and double check their items before the next fight.
Yeah, but the big question then becomes, when do you actually find your strength? Where are your power spikes going to come from? Because as this game is progressing, another neutral objective did go St. Paul's way. That time it was Shelly, and that's going to be used straight away in the mid lane. Action's happening up top as well. It's just kind of an assault on all the senses for SPCC. That Scatter of the Week will connect. Crush R, get kill, HuntingU. Continuing hunting for mid laners and robots, and Diana wants to hunt a little bear as well. It's a big bear, I suppose, but it's one that is barely able to escape. St. Paul is just continuing to put the pedal down.
Yeah, and all of St. Paul's pressure is coming through the areas where they have room. Notice that a lot of time when St. Paul is making a play, it's not on the bottom half of the map. They've kind of just let Rell and Admiral, actually, what are you doing?
Yep, I mean... He wanted Krugs, okay? He wanted his enemies Krugs. Didn't really pay attention to the map though. As that situation right there, it does continue. It does look as if St. Paul's is going to continue to try to put pressure down on this bot line. Örvendeck actually taking a fair bit of a beating right now. Dark Binding also connects onto ozquikmick quick, and they're not going to dive on that. A dive would be quite risky.
Yeah, they've got the pressure. Like, it's Kraken Slayer, you've got a Morgana, but it is so hard, A, to dive with a Morgana because she can't tank it, realistically speaking. And, of course, it's a Kai'Sa with Cleanse. Like, that's asking for trouble here. So, yeah, you just pressure the turret down to secure your third turret of the game after what was quite a wholehearted push in the mid. And it's becoming a bit of a problem now for SPCC. The lane that was doing well, quote-unquote, was his bottom lane, and they just couldn't keep up the tempo pressure because your top lane is a nullification lane. You need pressure somewhere. It was meant to be through this Kai'Sa, and unfortunately, the pressure has fallen through.
Yeah, it's not a good look for SPCC at this stage. If they're going to fight back in this one, they still need to find more picks, similar to what they saw before with Admiral KIM going for an unusual invade. Probably forcing the issues in lane could be riskier for them, although they trade initially going in favor of UnusedMove right now. But with the arrival of backup, MESSI and Snow should be able to come out on top here. I mean, especially with the backup.
Smiley's out of position, which is really weird to say here. As we see the fight kick off here, Real Unused is in trouble.
Yeah, Unused is, I mean, this is just taken at such a perfect moment because it's right as Unused is about to come around the corner, and there he sees all his St. Paul's. And yeah, I mean, Fog of War would have made that one quite entertaining for sure.
Can you imagine that his photo is taken seconds before disasters if I've ever seen one? And B, can you imagine the comms for SPCC? Smiley's like, don't worry, buddy, I'm right here. We can go for the trade as Shockwave comes through. Yeah,
a very premature Shockwave and a very unfortunate flank out of the likes of SmileyNerm. St. Paul's continuing to push their lead. Ewan, not to sound cliche, but I constantly say good teams get leads, great teams close them. Well, MESSI and Snow's trying to close right now, Unstoppable Force connects and deletes Örvendeck.
Yeah, this is looking really rough now for SPCC because Vol, they've reached the mark. St. Paul's at 16 minutes have cleansed the mark, and it is put into a position SPCC need to turtle like none other have done before them.
Yep. Yeah, it's turtle time. You know, go back to the 80s. Someone has to play the role of Michelangelo right here and sort of lead this squad in terms of playing safe of all things and playing stealthy like the ninjas you want to be and trying to find steals, trying to find picks where you can, but you don't risk too much in doing so. And if that means giving up this second dragon, so be it. Second dragon, a mountain drake, going to go to St. Paul's side. I don't think Soul is actually going to be relevant in this one, though, at the rate at which we're going. St. Paul's just continuing to snowball and extend their lead.
Yeah, the dragons themselves, you give up. Hell, I'd argue at this current rate, you give up Soul. You give St. Paul's the Soul Dragon because you are just not in the position to win the team fight. The problem is right now, though, for SBC, you talked about their ability, they need to turtle. But look at St. Paul's.
Yeah,
there
look
is
at
not
Orvan.
A world.
Well, this is not how you turtle. This is how you get stuck on an island, and desert islands are never fun because there are sharks that swim around and around looking for moments to strike. Dark Binding into Unstoppable Force, the two-man knockup, and the dive is executed so cleanly.
Exactly. I know SBC got a turtle a lot with Michelangelo, but at this point, St. Paul's, they're the ones saying cowabunga it is, committing to dives like that. And, well, there may be another victim in Summoner's Rift. Hunting, though, does not find the squishy targets.
No, well, I mean, the squishy targets are already mostly gone. It's just like Stacked is kind of sitting at the Nexus Tower right now, slowly making their way there. The other one was already taken care of, so that's going to be the last tier 2 removed from the Rift for the side of SPCC. Next is the base itself. Knock, knock. St. Paul's coming for dinner right now, and the question is, are they coming through the front, or are they going to sneak through the side?
Well, at this current point, with the over 10,000 gold lead, St. Paul's, they're absolutely coming through the front door here. I honestly can't expect them to kick open the front door at this point. Because look where they're rotating, Formal. They're rotating to the top half of the map, and we both know what happens in 1 minute's time.
Yeah, look, you can't have a dinner party without inviting Mr. Nasher, okay?
No.
Mr. Nasher loves to show up. He loves to break into your buildings and say, hey, how you're going. That is exactly what St. Paul's needs if they are going to try and accelerate this game even further. They even might be bringing Baron's younger sister, Shelly, to the equation as well, as they are going to be able to get that scuttle bug. Did they? Oh, no, it looks like they did get it. Okay. So everyone is going to be coming to play in St. Paul's house, or sorry, in SPC's house.
Yeah, St. Paul's, they're going to be in a... If St. Paul's can secure themselves the Baron and push with Shelly, I don't think that will be like the straw that breaks the back of SPCC, because in terms of raw firepower, they just do not have it. Only 3 members of their team have successful mythics, with Stacked and UnusedMove still putting theirs together. And for the people who do have their mythics, they are behind in itemization here. If this is to tell a story, look at our 280 carries. Our Kai'Sa does have his Kraken Slayer. He's got his boots, he's getting his long swords. But then Jinx, that is 2.5 items with the Infinity Edge coming soon as well. That is team fight devastation. Not even to take into consideration hunting. He's going for a straight-up death cap as his second item. If there was an Assassin Syndra argument, this is the one to be made with that itemization.
Look, okay. Here, let's have this argument. Let's have this discussion right now. Syndra can be built as an assassin.
Yes.
And in situations like this, 100% applicable. If you have this much of a lead, you go assassin. You push your delete button. You get it done.
Formal?
As Unstoppable Force is going to go ahead and find a kill right there. ozquikmick is what I wanted to call it, but it's just ozquikmick. He's trying to find a re-engage, and actually is getting some damage down. How does Hunting stay alive in that mosh pit? UnusedMove eventually gets a massive shutdown bonus, but I don't think it's going to matter. Shockwave gets 2 in the back line, but there's no front line, and that means there's no Orianna either. There is the ace. There is the game. St. Paul's is going to win this.
Yeah, going to charge it on there. SPCC, they were split up. They tried to set a trap by dangling their Kai'Sa in front of them. The issue is that when you dangle an 80 carry in front of a Syndra, Syndra eats. Yes. Syndra eats them. There is no escape. It's like trying to bait Jaws with a small tugboat. It's a horrible... What the...
Okay, you know what? Desperate times comes for desperate measures, all right? Killer Instinct was used and was so close into finding MESSI and Snow. Doesn't get him this time, although, if you want to talk about finding picks, Admiral KIM just did find one SmileyNerm, and that's no Volibear, that's no Kai'Sa, but it's also low health bars on St. Paul's, and they're going to back away, get themselves a 3rd dragon, because why not? And Ewan, we can go back to talking about Assassin Syndra.
Yeah, I mean, again... I agree. Assassin Syndra is purely on itemization and how far ahead are you. I shudder to think of the gold difference between our 2 mid laners right now. It would be... I'm gonna... Because the gold difference is about 12k... No, 14k, sorry. I think the mid lane is gonna be about probably 6,000 to 7,000 gold minimum.
Yeah.
And that is... And again... Ordinarily, that is a bad matchup for the Orianna. The fact that Stacked was late to it and Hunting played it really well made it impossible to recover. And St. Paul's are just going to run down they're going to keep open the door.
Oh, yeah, and now, a little late to the party, but Shelly is still going to be here. UnusedMove saying, I will welcome you. I will jump forward and say, hey, how you going? As next is ozquikmick, and he says, hi. Oh, wait, you guys brought a little too many desserts for me. I need to watch my diet. A double kill to RealML. That is 4 members gone. SPC falling apart, Stacked. Desperately trying to go to bed. It is late, and it looks like RealML is going to help them do it. That's going to be the game. St. Paul's gets themselves the victory. Shelly does a little victory dance, and they will move to 1-0 on the season.
And that is a dominating performance if I've ever seen one from St. Paul's. Now, okay, so I know some people will look at that game and say to themselves, well, it wasn't a fair game, right? Stacked was late to lane because of tech, because he had to teleport in, didn't load in time, and you could then say, oh, it all came through mid. But from St. Paul's side, the way that they played it was phenomenal.
Yep.
Utilizing the Syndra strength, utilizing the fact that they did have an aggressive jungler, it was fantastic from them.
Yeah, and I want to go back to utilizing that Syndra strength. And this is the last I'm going to talk about the Assassin Syndra thing, but I want to make this very clear. I agree with this build, and I agree Assassin is the way that you are supposed to build it in this situation. It leads to the strength of Syndra in that how you can build her so many different ways to do so many different things. But when you put together a team comp that is so reliant on burst, in particular, it was zoning and burst when they came through, and that is why another reason why you opt for that more assassin build, because there's only one real target on your enemy side you need to get rid of. Your entire team comp is all about finding them, isolating them, and taking them out as fast as possible. You don't need the constant refreshing of abilities that a normal Syndra build will take you. You don't need to have as slow a cooldown as possible if you only need to use an ability once. And that was the case in this team composition. And that's just one element as to how St. Paul's was like seemingly playing at that higher level than SPCC on this day.
Yeah, and SPCC, it wasn't like they rolled over, right? We saw that attempt of a dragon after a top lane dive. The issue is that they just didn't have the lane firepower to do it. And yet, if we just take mid out of the equation, their bot lane, the Rell and Kai'Sa, it inherently isn't bad. The problem is, though, that the firepower of that lane doesn't really exist for a while. I mean, Rell, you don't bring for damage, you bring for crowd control, and she's got great setup, but then the follow-up of the Kai'Sa, you just need a little bit more oomph from her if you're going to try force these early dragons. Something like, I know that Tristana, I think Tristana was banned in this game by SPCC themselves, but if you're going to look for these early pressures, something like maybe a Samira would be quite nice. A lot earlier oomph, and yes, she does need to get up close and personal, but it's almost the same range as a Kai'Sa. So, you know, maybe SPCC, if they want to look to running this composition style again, look for a bit of an earlier AD carry for them. Could you give them a little bit of love? Something
like, I mean, the Tristana that they banned out, I think would have been the ideal pick for them. I also don't oppose Draven if it's in Örvendeck's champ pool. I think it's another good one. And I might be alone in this. I still like Vayne in these types of team comps, and if you get that Vayne going early, great things can happen. Question for you, Ewan, before we kind of sign off for today, I need to ask, who do you give MVP to? Do you give it to Hunted on that Syndra, or do you go back to game one and give it to Tubular Bells back on the Tristana? Like, because I think we saw two breakthrough performances between two, you know, kind of amazing students in this. If you had to pick one, though, for the day's MVP, where does it lay?
I would have to give it to Tubular here. Now, my logic is not fair per se. Now, it's not to say that Hunting did poorly, but in this game with Hunting, rarely did we see someone from the side of SPCC who was a threat to him. Like, it was a relatively easy, it's not easy game to against him, but for Hunting, he wasn't like, oh god, I've got to worry about, you know, Smiley ganking me 4 times in a row, right? He had a very relaxed lane, but he got to dictate the pressure of it and then roam. Compare that to how Tubular had to deal with. Tubular had to deal with a monster mundo. Tubular had to deal with a Warwick trying to jump on his face every 5 seconds in every team fight. So I feel like the challenges that Tubular faced were greater than the challenges that Hunting had to face on the Syndra. So I would give it to the Tubular in that situation, personally. I mean, first of all, I agree. Second of all, I think you thought too hard about it. One has a penta, one doesn't. Done. Tubular, 100% gets MVP in my eyes. You gotta think simply sometimes. Anyways, that is going to do us here today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us in week 1 again. This is 1 of 8 for the season. Then we throw in another 4 for the playoffs. We got so much League of Legends here, and it's only the first term. So I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Same time, same place. Have a great night, everybody.